Hey fam, this is Marsha O. We're here today with another podcast for you. We look forward to these Tuesdays and these days when we can speak to you. And there's always so much going on. And each time that we speak to you, there's more and more things to share because God is just rich and he's doing some great things in the earth. And our focus has been for these past, and what reason why we decided to do this podcast is because we really wanted to take a look at a contemporary God, a contemporary Jesus, and to bring him out of the folds of the Bible into a historical presence for today. So many of you all have given your lives to Christ, and so many of you all are walking with the Lord. But it's always so refreshing to hear someone else's walk, someone else's testimony. So today I have a special guest for you, someone that I've known for quite some time. But you can know somebody but not really know them. But we want to take this time to really get to know this personal guest and her testimony and all that God has done in her life. I expect that she has so much to share that it was just going to pour and pour and pour. So get ready with your pictures, get ready with your laptops, your Bibles, get ready with just your ears to hear what God would give you. From Dr. Zakia Deborah McKinny, our special guest for today. Are you there, Dr. McKinny?
I am here, and thank you so much for having me. I'm looking forward to this and excited about our time.
Well, I am so glad that you were honoring us with your presence. You know that I have really kind of pressed to make sure this happens because oftentimes we have people that speak but don't have anything to say. And you are a person that I have known for a number of years that I have watched go through so many things, learned so many things, proven so many things, done so many things successfully, and have a testimony of God in her life. So let's start.
That I do. I've seen God do some amazing things.
Absolutely. Well, if you don't mind, I'm going to just start into this interview, and you can kind of guide me as I go along and make sure that I stay on the right track. But we're going to take a deep dive because we want to know, how did this whole thing start? Who is Dr. Zakia McKinny?
Well, Dr. Zakia McKinny is a woman on a mission. I was born in Selma, Alabama, in a place of justice, so I have a justice perspective to my life. I've gone through a lot in life and have overcome by the power of God. And so I have a testimony for women. I have a heart for women, and I would say my life goal is to train, inspire, develop, and empower women to advance the kingdom of God in all walks of life.
Well, it is so timely what you're doing here. We just did a podcast just a couple of weeks ago called Women Arise, because we understood, according to Psalm 68:11, that it is time that God is building up this great army of women that will have that will be publishing the good news, that will be going out and doing great feats for God and serving him always. And we're seeing things happen even in the film industry that are reflecting the timing of the Lord. And I think I gave the example of Woman King at that point, and we're going to be venturing also into the whole dynamics with Wakanda 2. Wakanda Forever, Black Panther 2. So we want to be able to look at what God is doing, what he is stirring. But he doesn't start out, he gets you started, and then he backs up as you begin to walk down that road. So how do you get from Selma to Cincinnati? How does that happen?
How did I get from Selma? Well, my father was in the service. He was in the military. And once I was born, they then had some successive moves, which is where my traveling spirit came from. I love travel. And so I was in 4 years in Germany as a young child, so I got accustomed to different kinds of culture. I've been in the north part of the United States, the southern part of the United States, Massachusetts, and Ohio. And when that travel bug hit me and I had the opportunity to do missions, it was very easy for me to adjust because I was accustomed to packing bags and knowing how to pack and doing it light and where do you go so I've been blessed to go to Russia 3 times. I've gone to Africa. I've gone to Italy, England, and Fiji. And so that Alabama girl came up out of that southern state with still a little bit of a drawl, and I haven't looked back. And I've been able to travel many places to see cultures and how God works in different cultures too.
Awesome. And so that venture then, was your father stationed at Wright Pat here in this region?
Mm-hmm. That was one of the last places that we were. My father and my mother and father settled in Sandalview Court in Dayton, in an area of Dayton near Wright-Patterson Air Force Base.
Ah, awesome.
Mm-hmm.
And so you chose to go to Cincinnati versus the Ohio State University, but that's another discussion. You chose.
Okay, well, now we have to talk about why. My father actually went to Walnut Hills High School.
Oh, okay.
And so because he had family here at that time, his my grandmother, Ruth Short, was here. His father was then near Cleveland, I believe. But I got in-state tuition at University of Cincinnati. Okay. And so that drove my costs down. So that's where I went. I went to University of Cincinnati and graduated from there, and then went back and got my master's.
So being a student at UC, I'm sure there are a lot of our listeners that can relate very easily with being a student at University of Cincinnati. How was your adventures, and what was your time there looking like?
Well, first let me tell you how I was raised. I was raised spoiled.
Spoiled?
And so when I got
spoiled?
Okay. Yes, I was.
Were you an only child?
No, 3 of us. There's my older brother and younger sister. But my mother and father just loved us, and thought I was special all my life, So I went to the University of Cincinnati, and went to a door and stood there waiting for somebody to open it, because that's what my father had taught me. I was accustomed to having the door, and these gentlemen just walked right by me, and I'm going, what's going on here? And one guy comes up and says, "What are you doing?" and walked in, and I thought, well, I guess this is my welcome to college. And I had to learn that everybody is not raised like you.
Okay.
You got to make some adjustments. Yes, I did.
So literally, there was a gentleman going through the door and you followed him in? Is that literally what happened?
No, there were a couple of gentlemen who went through the door before me, because I was standing there waiting for them to open it. This is what you do. The door is open for you. Exactly. And 2 of them went by, and I thought, this is odd. And then the third one said, "What are you doing?" And I thought to myself, "I'm standing here waiting for you gentlemen to open the door." And he just walked in, and I said, "Well, welcome to the new world. Let me go ahead and open the door myself."
Wow. Oh, man. Okay. Welcome to the new world. Okay.
Welcome to the new world. Mm-hmm.
And so Cincinnati, the University of Cincinnati ended up being a very maturing experience for you. I understand that you were in the gospel choir there. Have I got that right?
Yes, you did. I was in the Hannah Roby Gospel Choir with Eric Abercrombie at that time, yes. And I actually was the first. One of the things that I've seen always in my life, that the Lord has always used me as a pioneer. At a very young age, I was the first to do this and the first to do that. I was one of the first African-American presidents of the Honor Society when I was about in fifth or sixth grade.
Interesting.
Somewhere around there. And then when I got to the University of Cincinnati, I was one of the first African-Americans who won a beauty pageant in a predominantly racist area.
Really?
And they wanted to make sure, that I wasn't hurt. So I had to drive in a car in a limo with the top was not down. It had to be up. Wow. Because they wanted to make sure that nothing happened. I was the first, when I went to the University of Cincinnati, I was one of the first individuals in the African-American history program. Mm-hmm. And so that first class that they had for those who were graduates of the African American History program, I was in that class.
What piqued your interest in African American history?
What, say that again?
What piqued your interest in African American history?
Well, one of the things that happened is that I was an avid reader, and I began to read a number of things, and I came across some of the history of the African American people, of course, and I've been born in Selma, Alabama. And when I began to read some of the history of Selma and what happened, the places that I had actually, my mother had given me a picture, and in the picture she was holding me, and there was a water fountain that said whites only, and I was in her arms. And I thought, okay, I need to study a little bit more about what happened. And so I just opened up a wealth of revelation to me about how humanity treats each other. And I thought to myself, what can I do? Because again, I'm this justice baby. What can I do? And I thought, well, I'm going to blaze a trail here. I'm going to be the first to graduate out of this department. And they told me, you'll never do anything with it. You know, you better go to something else. Nobody will ever pay you. And I just looked at them and said, we'll see.
So you were
graduated.
one of the first to graduate from the program then.
That's correct.
You were there when they walked across the Edmund Pettus Bridge. Is that during your era that you lived in Selma?
I don't remember that particular fact. I don't remember. I'd have to go ask. I would have to ask about that one. But I had a chance years later to go back and actually walk across the bridge, and where the bridge, the area, go through all of Selma, all of it. You name it, I went to it because I was curious.
Yes,
I had never seen that when I was little. And so I actually went back there, and then relatives of ours just took me all over.
Awesome. And for those that don't know that event with John Lewis and the tragedy that happened there as they tried to cross the bridge, and how they were just set upon by troopers and policemen, and literally the group that was blacks that were trying to cross the bridge were beaten terribly. And that marked history, and a lot of things came because of that particular event that happened there in Selma. But I want to get back to Cincinnati again. So you're going through the African American course and curriculum, graduating with that curriculum, and then go into detail. What else happened after that?
Well, after that, I was going to the University of Cincinnati. That was my place after I left the University of Cincinnati, my last year there. I just felt myself hungry for more. And there was a gentleman that met me right after I graduated. I'd gone over to the university to get something, and he started talking to me about Islam. What are you going to do with your life? How are you going to change things for our people? And I went with him to one of their sessions and decided this must be it.
This is Islam.
Justice.
Someone just okay, gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, I went into Islam, and I stayed there for probably about 8 years. And unfortunately, the conversation about Islam was one thing, but the reality of the life I was living was another.
Can you explain that a little bit more?
For me, there was a gap between the I don't know what you want to call it, the principles of Islam and the living out of Islam. Okay. And so although I felt that this was an organization of justice, an organization that would stand for what was right, and the God that would support us doing that, what I instead found was a life of abuse, a life of neglect,
Wow.
You know, a life of other women, a life of Coke spoons in pockets, a life of bags of drugs under rugs, just all kinds of things. And so I decided one day, this is not for me. And because I was very handy, I went and bought me a little sewing machine. I tucked it inside of a trunk. And when my husband was gone, I would sew up my clothes for a job. I called my father, asked him to meet me after I'd worked a little bit. I went out and got a job, started working. And then I got a ticket for a bus and went home.
Oh, my goodness.
Went home. And at that point, I'm going, God, where are you? Who are you? That wasn't you. And that wasn't for me. But unfortunately, at that point, I kind of decided to do some worldly kinds of things and found myself caught in yet another relationship that was unhealthy. And I had seen my parents have a healthy relationship. My father loved me. I was a ladybug. My mother loved me. She raised me up on everything, but I just had no clue. I was the little girl from a little town of Alabama,
Selma,
if you would.
Yes. Little Selma, yes.
Yes. And so this world was a little bit different, but God. So while I was in that marriage, I had a little boy that was brought into my life at the age of, I think he was like 8, 9, or 10, about 9 or 10.
Wow.
And I loved him as hard as I could. And I realized there was something in him. I just didn't know what. And he was kind of taken out of my life after about two-ish years or so. And so about 13 years after that, I got a knock at the door. And it was this young boy. He's grown up a little bit more. And he came into the house and he said, I've done some things wrong. And so I said, okay. And by then I had accepted Christ. Now, before that, I had gotten saved because the Lord had really woken me up by dreams and visions. And maybe we can cover that at a later date. But I really wanted to press in around the purposes of God. This little boy came into my life. I've gotten saved. And at that time, he was introduced to Islam. I've gotten saved. He comes back into my life like 10 years later. And right now, he's a young man that is a teacher, an evangelist.
Oh, wow.
He gets everything saved that's moving or walking. He ministers to men and helps them to act like Christ when it comes to their marriage and to understand the sanctity of marriage. And so even though I was going through that tough stuff,
yes,
real tough stuff,
yes,
there was one of the purposes there was to put that little boy, me, into his life and him into me.
You know what?
And so when we're going through stuff, we have to be able to bear down and go through it and know that's what we're doing. We're going through it. And there's a purpose, a reason, a person, and a season for it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We're coming to the end of the first part, but I know we're just getting started with you. So as we just press more and more in this second part on God's Provisions Live, we thank you. We thank you for sharing. But we are just uncovering the surface or scratching the surface. So stay tuned, listeners. Stay tuned, fam. We'll be back for part 2.